Hello and welcome to Cheers to Fears, where you take horror films and turn them into drinking games. We're your two hosts. I'm Alex.
And I'm Tucker. Today we will be making a drinking game for Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin, directed by William Eubank, and once again coming back to write is Christopher Landon.
It stars Margot, who tracked down an Amish community that her mother was a part of. Her mother abandoned her at the hospital when she was a baby, and ever since she's been trying to find her mother. Her friend, Chris, thinks it's a good idea to make a documentary about the whole ordeal, so they head out to the Amish farm and see what they can find out about Margot's mother. While they are in the small Amish community, they start to uncover the sinister truth behind it.
This movie came out in 2021, but we are still going to be talking about spoilers for the movie, so we recommend that you watch the film before continuing on to the rest of the video. As for incentive to watch the movie now, we will post the drinking rules on screen. With that out of the way, let's move on to the rules.
The first rule, as always, is death. If you see somebody die, you take a sip. This came to a total of 10 sips in this movie.
Yeah, which was the most out of any Paranormal Activity movie.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing to mention about deaths is the final act, it just gets insane. There's so much going on, so much death occurring. It's just wild.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack in that final scene for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But moving on to rule number 2, it's whenever you hear a scream, cry, or yell take place, and that occurred 17 times in this movie.
Honestly, again, there isn't much to say about this rule, as there always isn't a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was average. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next rule, which is whenever there's a jump scare, you take a sip, which came to a total of 9.
Yeah, and the one that sticks out for me is the one in the reflection of the window.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main one that I guess I kind of think about when I hear about jump scares in this movie.
Yeah.
Nothing else really stood out too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll move right along to rule number 4, which is whenever paranormal activity occurs, and this happens 6 times in this movie.
There isn't really much paranormal activity in this paranormal activity movie. The ones that we did add, however, it can be unexplainable bumps in the night, etc., things like that in the previous movie.
Yeah.
But a lot of these, honestly, could be kind of chalked up to somebody actually doing something, since the household is so large, right?
Yeah, there's so many people living in there.
Mm-hmm.
And also, in my opinion, some of the paranormal activity in this movie, it kind of felt like it was forced in there so that they could call it a paranormal activity movie,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So it kind of felt out of place with the story going on, but I don't know, that was maybe just me.
And moving on to rule number 5 is whenever the camera is mentioned, and that came to a total of 7 sips this time around.
Yep, pretty straightforward, just like always.
What is this stuff?
Magic, baby. Lipstick cam, drone, LEDs. We're not fucking around over here.
Yeah,
That's
clearly
it.
not. Okay.
So we'll just move right along to rule number 6, which is whenever mom is mentioned. This happens 6 times in the movie.
Yes, and specifically Margot's mom, who is presumed dead.
Yeah, so you guys are like way too young to have known my mom. But your parents, do they ever talk about her?
But that's
Yeah.
actually never clarified in the movie. I mean, there's a little bit of foreshadowing that she might be alive, such as the little girl.
You know, that was my mom's name. She used to live here a long time ago.
She's still here.
But that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, and then we finally meet her at the end,
Mm-hmm.
which I still don't know if she's alive or dead if you call her alive or dead in that.
Let's move on to rule number 7, which is whenever the camera is seen, you take a sip. This came to a total of 11 sips.
Yeah, this was kind of more than I expected, to be honest. It's because it cuts from like found footage where they're using like a handheld camcorder or whatever, and then it changes to like a movie-like setting where it's actually a professionally shot movie. So it was kind of throwing me off at times, but it wasn't really too distracting. But because we made this rule, it kind of made it more prominent for us. Now on to rule number 8. It's whenever it turns to night, and this happens 6 times.
So I guess there's no night number in this movie, so this is kind of as best we can do to replace that rule.
Yeah, exactly.
Now moving on to the next rule, which is whenever the church is mentioned, you take a sip. This came to a total of 5 sips throughout the movie.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious when this happens. Not much to say on it. It's straightforward. So we'll move on to the final rule of this drinking game, which is whenever the date is shown in white text on screen.
Yeah. I feel like this is kind of an extension to the night number.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, like, it kind of replaces it in a way.
Yeah.
Well, not really, because this happens in the other movies as well. It shows the dates.
Yeah, we could have probably done this for every movie.
But I guess the only other thing to say about this rule is it gave us 8 sips.
And that does it for the drinking rules for the movie. The total number of sips came to 85. That is the equivalent of drinking 3 standard 12-ounce cans based off our 30 sip per can scale.
Yeah, might have been the easiest one so far in the franchise.
I think you're right. I
Like-
could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the easier ones.
Yeah, I think it was. But it wasn't bad at all, obviously, being only 85 sips. The only time it got maybe a little bit more hectic, again, is the last scene where
last scene,
everybody's dying. It
Just
got-
slaughtering each other.
It just got crazy,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is a completely new perspective of the Paranormal Activity franchise.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with any of the other movies in almost any way.
Yeah. And I just find it interesting that they even called it a Paranormal Activity movie because it was like a totally different story. It was like rebooted. I don't know. But I think they must have just slapped it on to get more people, to get more eyeballs on it. I guess like Paramount probably just named it Paranormal Activity to make it more popular, I guess, rather than having an original title. I don't know.
And I believe that this was the first movie that wasn't in theaters. It could have been in theaters, but I know it was released on Paramount Plus for sure.
Yeah.
And I think now it's on Amazon Prime, at least in our region.
Yeah, I don't remember it being released in theaters. I thought it had a theatrical date, and then when I heard it was released on Paramount Plus for streaming, I was kind of surprised, and I was like, oh, I thought that was coming to theaters like months down the line, and then all of a sudden it was available and everyone was talking about it. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, and we just completely missed out on this movie.
Yeah, which, whatever, we're coming to it a bit late, but that's fine. So I guess getting back into the movie itself, there were hints throughout the movie on what was going to happen or take place. Like, for example, there was hints that they weren't actually Amish or an Amish community. Like, the one girl comes up to Margot and she's like,
No, it's from Walmart. Do you have TikTok?
No, not on my phone.
and it's like, if you're Amish, they wouldn't even be asking
Even know
about
what it
TikTok.
is, yeah.
Yeah, if they might know what it is, but they wouldn't have it or like do anything and have any involvement with it.
Yeah.
So it was kind of just a red flag right there.
And I guess another one that we kind of mentioned was Sarah being alive. I think one little girl mentions that, oh, she is still alive, or says something ominous like that. And lo and behold, end of the movie, we see Sarah as a demon, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I feel like one of the themes in this movie is like it was very hard to escape. There was a lot of isolated areas.
Oh yeah.
For instance, like the cave. And like even the car battery dying or something like that. And then Samuel gets defensive when they start to ask questions. He's supposed to be like borderline their only friend there, right?
Yeah, well, he's the reason it kind of got reintroduced, I'll say.
Yeah, exactly.
And that just kind of helps show that, like, throughout the whole film, Margot is just searching for answers on, you know, who was her mother, what was she doing, or like, why was she cast away from this community or whatever.
Yeah, why did she abandon her at the hospital? There
Yeah.
was a lot of questions, and it kind of kept me guessing throughout the movie. It kept me engaged.
Yeah, and that was the main thing we see play out throughout the whole movie, and I feel like they did a pretty decent job at, you know, keeping us engaged, like you said, because of that.
Now let's move on to Dale, which honestly I thought was the best comic relief character of the entire franchise.
I would agree, and he actually might have been my favorite character in this whole movie. He was the one who kind of entertained me the most personally.
Oh yeah. I feel like from a character standpoint, or I guess his comic relief standpoint, it could definitely be argued that he is the best character in the movie.
Yeah, I could see how some people might think it's a little bit over the top or cheesy at some times, but for me, I don't know, it aligned with my sense of humor pretty well. So we kind of mentioned how this movie kept us engaged throughout the whole thing with Margot trying to search for answers and stuff. And a lot of the ways that they do that is like, they show the goat sacrifice, for example, with a two-headed goat. That was interesting to see, and it was like, what's going on? When you first see that, it's kind of shocking in a way, and it's like, you want to learn more, so that's one way. And then there's like the notes in the cookie tin.
I found this letter in my mom's room.
Or just the church's relevance and why they're not allowed to go in there. And when they do go in there, then there's that big hole going down into those tunnels or whatever. They keep introducing more things that just keep you engaged and make it more interesting to watch everything unfold, I guess.
It was like little baby steps. So, for example, you learn of the church's existence, then you can't go inside of the church. Then when you go inside of the church, you learn of the hole. Then you go down the hole, you don't see a lot, so they go back up. But we know they're going to have to go back down there later.
Exactly.
So I feel like there's a lot that kind of keeps you thinking and guessing throughout the movie.
Yeah, I would agree.
So eventually they finally do go down that hole, and they find Margot's mom down there. And from that point on, the movie just goes over the top. Right when they enter that church, I'm pretty sure the last 20 minutes is just pure enjoyment for me.
Yeah, it was pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
It was very chaotic, though, and there's so much going on.
And I do feel like there was a good amount of payoff in the movie. So, for example, obviously there was the whole slaughter, everybody kind of turning on each other, demon jumping from one person to the next, Sarah still being alive. Or I know the hay trap door. It kind of set up the way that Sarah would die, which is, I'd say, pretty good. Just the whole setup alone, I feel it's like a good payoff for the most part. And I guess the series had a very reverse effect from the last one as far as open spaces to isolation. This one was more or less isolation was the fear, where I feel like the other movies was isolation with safety. In the other movies, there was a lot of like wide open houses, wide open fields, things like that. Whereas, for example, for this movie, it was a very small community, small house. There was a lot of people in it. Even when they were outside, I'd say it felt very isolating just for the fact that there was snow everywhere. So it feels like you were constantly being smothered.
Yeah, I feel like isolation was a running theme throughout this movie because, like, even in their room, it was a small room. It could feel claustrophobic and stuff. And like you said, outside with the blizzard going on, you can't even see what's going on out there. So it's, again, isolating. And then even the cave or the tunnels or whatever, that's super tight space and nobody's down there except Sarah's down there. So that's, again, super isolated and confined. And I think it's just something that is ongoing throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, and like a lot of the franchises just had these very, very big houses. So it was a weird mix-up to have just this very tiny, small, isolated house. So overall thoughts on the movie?
For me, I think it was middle of the road in terms of the franchise. Like, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it by any means. I think I would probably rewatch it later on, like sometime in the future. But there was things I didn't like for sure. Like, I wish, and I said this with the Halloween 3, I wish they just didn't call it Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't deter me from liking the movie or anything like that. But it's just, it's completely different from the rest of the Paranormal Activity franchise, like we said. But it's also not anything special that I haven't seen in some other movie. Like, it's all stuff we've seen, you know? So it wasn't that captivating for me personally, I guess.
Honestly, I know that a lot of audiences and critics disliked it, but I don't see why. I was one of the very few people that actually thoroughly enjoyed the movie, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It didn't utilize the same plot, which was really good. And I still feel like why people didn't like Halloween 3 is why they didn't like this one, is because the name Paranormal Activity was attached to it, so they were thinking of something different, such as them thinking that this is going to be like, another teen schlock movie with things just slowly going bump in the night and covers getting ripped off somebody and somebody screaming through the hallway because they're getting dragged down or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like this movie wasn't any of that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And like I mentioned before, the Paranormal Activity stuff that was occurring, I felt like it was just forced in there to try and make it more of a Paranormal Activity movie. I think I would have liked the movie more if they didn't include that paranormal stuff that was going on and rather just made it about this fake Amish community that was kind of like a cult and just treated it that way, where Margot was trying to get answers about her mom and just don't even include any of the paranormal shit. And I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more that way. That's just me though. Either way, no matter what we think about the movie, it's time we go to the award ceremony, where we award one not so lucky nominee the Darwin Award. This award goes out to the character who made a stupid decision that resulted in them getting killed, somebody else getting killed, or simply resulting in something bad happening that could have easily been avoided. This award can also be given to a character that's just plain dumb. Here are the nominees.
Today's first nominee is Jacob for not immediately shooting Chris, but instead waiting. This gave Chris enough time to win a fight against Jacob and leading to Jacob's death.
The next nominee today is Margot for constantly going into places she has no business entering, such as the well under the church or the locked up bedroom.
Our final nominees today we have are Chris and Dale for buying a car battery instead of renting a car. In the time they were gone, the cult could have done more things to the vehicle to make it not run.
And the winner is Margot. If she had any common sense, she should have left the farm instead of investigating further.
And with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our look into Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. If you end up playing the game alongside the movie, or if you have any other feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below. Also let us know in the comments where this ranks in comparison to the other Paranormal Activity movies.
Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next episode where we are going to be ranking each installment of the Paranormal Activity franchise. If you want to check out our most recent video on Paranormal Activity 6, click on the box on the top right. Or if you want to see a playlist of all the drinking games and movies we review, click on the box below it. Thanks for tuning in, and this is us saying, cheers to fears.
If you set him free, he'll be able to possess anyone. He's jumping from body to body.
What are you doing
and
to
he'll
it?
kill us all. He'll kill every last one of us.